All right, it is April 17th, and it's another glorious day, and April month, and it's gorgeous. It's let's see, 82 degrees in Austin, Texas, and we have a great guest. We're going to talk about rockets and space and cool things and some other cool things. And but before we get rolling, we're gonna have our own John Sibley Butler play some music.
Just about a year ago, I set out on the road, seeking my fame and fortune, looking for a pot of gold. They've got rough, they've got tough. I guess you know those two. Lord, I'm stuck in Lodi again. You know the man from the magazine said I was on my way. Somewhere I lost connection and out of songs to play. Came into town on a one-night stand. Yes, my dreams fell. Oh Lord, I'm stuck in Lodi again.
All right. Thank you, Johnny. Well, we seem to be accelerating into some fun times. I've been spending a lot of time attending grid events, and this week there are like three of them. And I'm going to an economist conference downtown later. And there's a lot of stuff, activity, and obviously, and some people are predicting the world's ending because of the war and the economy, and some people are predicting the world's going to be fine and we're going to get to Mars soon. And so we'll talk about some of those things. But Johnny, what's your take on the economy and innovation and the disrupting startups? And I think that you're working on the Disruptors 50, and what's going on?
I am. It is very, very interesting. Things are getting very, very interesting in terms of the measurement. For the first time, I have seen a startup that disrupts how AI works. You know, traditionally, it's regression, multiple regression based on the mean, regression toward the mean. And if it's a car or a dog, it's yes or no. It's logic analysis. And this analysis goes back and uses the old math, the math kind of formulas, which takes the mode. We used to call it molar math. And what it does, it takes the mode, that is the number that comes the most in the distribution, and it uses diagrams, and it's predicting better than the traditional kind of predictions that we have had. So I'm excited about that. I looked at all the math. I worked through all the math. So Andreas, the technology, how we measure things, how we see the world is changing. Not necessarily what we do, but how we measure what we eat. I'm working with a company from Sweden, and they have a technology that looks at the relationship between performance and diet, performance and nutrition, and they can tell the athletes who will when they will stop playing, when they will get tired, and those kind of things. And then, of course, working hard on the grid. As you know, we're working on a system that brings together all of the technology from the grid and looks at the technology, brings it all together so that we can change the entire grid, go to the edges, put boxes at the edges, and take care of the distributive kind of process. So the economy itself, it's like any other things. If you are involved in the new technologies, if you have jobs in the new technologies, then life is fine. As Ronald Reagan say, you know, a recession is when it's when your neighbor loses your job, and depression is when you lose your job. So I think that we have that reflected in the American economy. But what we must ask is, what would be the impact of the different kind of wars that's going on around the world? We have the war with Israel in the Middle East, And then we have the Ukrainian situation. And to what extent will the supply chains be really, really confused and messed up due to those kinds of conflicts? And if we look at the European theater, of course, we've been there before. We've been there with Ukraine. We've been there with Germany. We've been there before. And we know that it will have an impact on immigration. People are migrating all over the world. People are going for safety. They're going for food, and they're going for all kinds of things. So the good news is that the economy, I think, is if we look at the indication of the job production, the economy is doing good. We still have people, of course, who are not doing well, but that's expected in a market economy. And the bad news is that the uncertainty of the war, the uncertainty of the politics here have really gotten ugly in terms of what's going on with the presidential election, I think. So all in all, we are saying that we need to solve problems in the future. If we solved Pearl Harbor, we solved World War II, we solved a lot of conflicts. And we've done it. You know, we won the war with new technologies and weapon systems. And then we came with the communication system, the revolution in communications. So I think we can solve that, but we always have to keep in mind the human structure and the human decisions that we make. Because there's many formulas that we have, and this is why we will always have what we call financial kind of issues, is because we do not have the human formulas in the Black-Scholes models. We do not have the human formulas in the efficient model, and humans will change their mind. So yes, I've looked at a lot of technologies, and I'm excited to look at our guest, what Deb has to say, because it looks like she's right in my space of evaluating technologies that we took from NASA at IC Square some years back.
Well, before we jump on that, I do be remiss to say that maybe our guest could shed some light into the debacle or the not so good fortunes of Boeing. And it's kind of interesting what's going on there. American icon getting hammered. I also wanted to share with you all that Tesla announced 14,000 people layoff, which is probably an indicator of the kind of not that the company's in trouble, but the company's got costs because of the competition that it is having from all angles. It's interesting what's going on there. At the same time, you know, United Airlines stock is doing fabulous, and as an airline, they're apparently doing tremendously well. So, you know, it's really interesting to see how some segments of the economy continue to do really well, like AI, NVIDIA, and others, and then some are not doing so well. But in general, I think that, you know, we have this reborn love of space and going to the moon and going to Mars and all that. So very delighted to have Deb Newberry, who runs her own company today, but has been in this space for a long time. And she was the chair and director of nanoscience department at Dakota County Technical College, and managed for a long time at NSF grant that was very foundational to a lot of things that are going on. So Deb, so glad to have you.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you. Thank you. And just in all transparency, I really have no insight into everything that's going on at Boeing.
No, but I'd be curious. I'd be curious your thoughts. Your thoughts as a person in this space. How can a juggernaut like Boeing get in such a trouble? I mean, what's going on?
Yeah, you know, I really don't know. However, there have certainly been times in my career that I've been not in as dire of a situation as they might be, if I can even use that word to describe where they're at. But I've faced a lot of challenges in my career. And you know, I was telling John earlier, when I was in second grade, I told my parents I wanted to be a scientist, and I was just very blessed that they encouraged me in that. I got the chemistry sets, the microscopes, the telescopes. I can still in my mind picture the burnt area in the Air Force housing floor where my beaker got way too hot for the floor. And so then when I was in high school, I really liked physics. When I went to college, I was trying to decide if I was going to make more money as a nuclear physicist or an astrophysicist. That was the big decision. Wasn't quite sure, and I picked nuclear physics. And then I guess I'm a consummate learner. I just keep learning. So I've got chemical engineering and electrical engineering and mechanical engineering kind of thrown in there with the nuclear physics. And I think because my father was in the Air Force, I was always intrigued with flight, with airplanes. And then I grew up in the 60s when, you know, the space race and all of that. And I've always been enamored by space, by rockets, by airplanes. And so when I first started my career, I started working in a group that was building satellite systems, and I was doing the radiation analysis and testing on the electronics and some of those systems. And there were several times that I had to understand the results of experiments. I was truly working, and this is part of the technology assessment, my love of innovative, modern, state-of-the-art, beyond state-of-the-art technology. And I was lucky enough to be working with some very early and extremely advanced electronics and trying to figure out exactly what was happening when I hit them with radiation was certainly a challenge. And trying to figure out what was going on, but more importantly, trying to figure out if something was either unexplained, not necessarily unexplained, but it reacted differently than what I had anticipated it would. That was so exciting to try and figure out what in the world was going on. What were those electrons doing that they were doing something that I hadn't planned on them doing. And to me, that was really exciting. And I don't know if it's part of how my personality, but I wanted to find out. And I can remember losing sleep and staying awake at night, you know, just staying awake all night trying to work with diagrams and figures and schematics and trying to determine what was going on, and trying to find the solutions to those problems. Getting a little bit back to your Boeing thing, then I became the executive director for our space organization, had about 130 people on my team. And we were developing the command and data handling systems for our satellite customers. And that was another time when things didn't always go exactly the way that we had hoped they would go. Again, we were working with very advanced technology. And so a lot of it was, oh my gosh, we almost felt like sometimes when things worked, it was completely black magic. Like, why did that work and why didn't it? But at that point in time, I had, energy isn't the right word, but I had the drive and desire to figure out what was wrong. And I was working with a team of people that were willing to help me figure out where the problems were and to solve the problems. And the thing that led to the compass process was because I made bad decisions, the compass process, which is a trademark process that I developed it way back then, didn't know I was doing it, but I got tired of trying to second guess or having decisions that I regretted. And because of that, I ended up creating a way to make sure that everybody, you can capitalize all of those letters in that word, everybody was asked or included in the decision process. And initially, to include everybody is a huge challenge. It takes a lot of time, but I figured out a way to do it pretty efficiently and very effectively. And after I kind of started implementing this new way of making decisions, whether it was a technology decision, whether it was a non-technical decision, the amount of time that I spent regretting a decision was was very, very small.
Mhm.
And I don't know how other companies work. I don't know how companies work. I just know that as I was managing my space group and I modified the way that I made my decisions, I made them smarter, and I included everybody, that made a difference in the flight units that we delivered, in how we met our schedule, and the quality of what we delivered. So, and maybe it was because I only had 130 people that I was dealing with, not 130,000. I don't know exactly, uh, why, but it was amazing the difference that it made when I started applying this process to making decisions. And boy, did I get pushback. I had an extremely brilliant person, my system engineer, my lead, my chief engineer. He was extremely, very, very bright, multiple patents, very bright. And at one of the meetings, I had invited some of our assembly people and our quality, our testing people, to the meeting. And my chief engineer looked over, he was right next to me, and he says, why is she here? And I said, well, you can design things that she can't make. And if we don't find out that she can't make it until 6 months down the road, we're going to be in big trouble. So I want to know right now that she can assemble, that he can test, that he can buy, that she can write the software that's going to make your design work. And that was the difference. That made the difference. And this was all space stuff. And so right now, I kind of took a break from doing my space work and created a 2-year nanotechnology program. My love of technology and innovation and new stuff happened in the 80s. And then in 2003, I created a 2-year nanotechnology program. So I taught that for quite a while. And that was the National Science funding that you mentioned. And now, since 2018, I'm back in the space arena, and I just love it more than ever, because the excitement, that is surrounding the energy that is surrounding some of the space effort is really exciting. And I'll let you ask a question, but I do want to talk a little bit about workforce and get back to what John was saying about the economy just a little bit. So,
Yeah, well, you never did answer that about Boeing, but we'll just say.
I know. How do you think I did?
Yeah, you did great. Let me ask you this. As everything that we do, it's based on modeling, right? And from physics and modeling the physical world, or what we can take from physics, our airplanes look just like an eagle, right? Our rockets look like things that can fly. We have machines that look like fish, and etc. When it comes to the modeling world, let's just think theoretically about the modeling world. Okay, whether it's finance, how do we model the everything in finance, whether it's insurance, whether it's a big board, or etc. How do we model the flight of airplanes, and how do we model the flight of spaceships, right? And I think the modeling of human behavior is there too. I think it's coming. I think it's converging. If you look at all of what the scientists are saying, there's so much data now on what people say. We can almost write equation about the movement and the modeling of people. Do you think, Dale, that if you look at, let's just take the airline industry, that it has been overcomplicated to fly things now? Do you think that the human element has been taken out too much, whether it is an aircraft like a 737 Max, or rather it is a spaceship? Do you think that we are too dependent upon the modelers that sometimes behave badly? There's a great book entitled "Modelers Behaving Badly." How do you think about the relationship between where we are now in the modeling world? We got to model everything, right? I mean, where are we? We started way back when, right? With the space we did, right? and all of that technology went to other things. Where are we? Or do we have models that really behave badly now all over the place?
Whoa. I don't think that the models or the people that create them are necessarily behaving badly. I think part of it is because we have allowed ourselves visibility to a world, and it's my favorite world, the nanoscale world, that is so complex that to honestly believe that we can accurately model that interaction, that scale is right now unrealistic. I mean, how right now the people that I know, the amazing people that are working at the nanoscale and even smaller, the pico scale or smaller, so many times we measure something or we look at something with an atomic force microscope, a scanning electron microscope, and what we observe doesn't match what we modeled. And I think it's just because it's a lousy excuse, but doggone it, the world is an extremely complex world, especially when you get down to talking about how individual, electrons interact with each other and what happens to a graphene sheet of carbon when you add 10, impurities to it. How does that change the electrical properties? We're talking about using sheets of graphene for transistors and 2D transistors. Well, how pure do they have to be? And to me, that's an extremely complex problem, not only in reality to create, but it's also extremely complex. And please folks, I'm not an expert in this area at all, but I just, as transistors from an electrical engineering standpoint, as they keep getting smaller and smaller, the opportunity for the slightest deviation having a huge impact is increased. And whether or not modeling can keep up with anticipating what will happen or not, I don't think it can. I fly a lot. One of the things that makes me feel absolutely the safest, and it's not based on airline or anything, but it's when that pilot or co-pilot, when I see them outside of the airplane, walking around the airplane, looking at the wings, peering into the engine, it's not the fuselage, but that engine part, looking up at the tail to make sure that the rudders, that is the thing that makes me confident that I'm sitting on a good airplane. And it's,
Yeah.
I don't go back to other things. It's that person that I see walking around the outside and I go, yeah, he's the one that's gonna, they're the one that's gonna fly it. So
Yeah, I think the complexity is just when you if you get to nanotechnology as a Nobel Prize winner from Rice University, I might add.
Yep. I knew him. I
Yeah.
knew Rick and Harry Croto very well.
Yeah. It just becomes more complicated with interaction effects. There's so much interaction going on. But on the other hand, Deb, this is how we live our lives. We live our lives through the modeling of now of marketing. We live our lives, they're modeling automobiles to be, run by themselves and know people. So I think but the thing about it is, you know better than me, we have to keep trying. We have to keep trying to discover why a helicopter looks like something flying around in your yard. We have to understand all those things. So as we move forward then, and if you look at things like electricity, if you look at things where we're going as we model the new the new ways of receiving electricity, right? And looking at what those protons are going to do you see any advancements as we think about electricity as it is delivered today, the same as it was delivered 50, 60 years ago, or 70 years ago? How do you see us improving on that delivery going in the future? If you had some people that was, talking to you about the grid, and what keep them awake? How would you think about modeling the grid in different kinds of ways based on the modeling that you know from electric engineering and the space industry?
The I would the area that concerns me, or I think could require the most attention, it's a little bit boring, but is in the storage. The storage of, thank goodness the sun gives us the capability to create a certain amount, a large amount of energy. And it's going to be especially true as we go and begin to live on the moon, and as we travel to Mars and go there. It's there are going to be, it's going to be very much a sinusoidal, a boom and a bust. You know, we've got the energy creation period, but then we have to be able to store it for long periods, relatively long periods of time. And to me, what I see in terms of like solar panel, if I think of solar panels as energy generation, or, you know, we could talk about the water, the dams, the water power generation, but nuclear power generation can be substantial. And, you know, companies like Rolls-Royce are looking at, and NASA is looking at, a lot of nuclear powered propulsion systems, which in many ways is extremely efficient and makes a lot of sense. And we've become very smart about creating and designing those systems. So when I think of energy or power generation, that's not, I see a lot of technology advancements, progress being made in that way, but it's the storage of that energy. Look at the you know, the satellite that made it to the moon but landed on its side. What was the problem? The solar panels were not able to get and point toward the sun, get to the sun to create the energy. And then even if it did for a little while, it ended up losing it used up all of its stored energy. And so, you know, we lost it. And
Deb, I read a lot of Nikola Tesla.
Yep.
In his papers, and his argument that we could, that the energy produced by the Earth could take us anywhere, if we did certain kinds of things. I don't know what to think about the anti-gravity stuff and what's flying around. I think it's ours. You know, when people tell me they saw a UFO, I mean, unidentified flying object, I think it's ours. I think it belongs to America or somewhere else. But, you know, we might have some stuff. But have you thought about Nikola Tesla lately?
No, I have not. Thank you.
And the kinds of things that we're doing that he said he had already solved.
Right.
I just think it very interesting. I just thought maybe if you had an interest in science, to me, that's the ultimate of the scientists.
Yeah. I'm not gonna, boy, John, I don't disagree with you at all. No, I've been spending most of my time with nanotechnology, and also one of the things that I kind of do for fun, and it's my observation of how kind of things have changed. You know, if you'll let me, I'm going to jump into the word multidisciplinary. And
oh yeah, that's the only way to go.
Way back when I had my team, we were a different kind of multidisciplinary. We were all focused on space. We were all focused on providing command and data handling systems. But the multidisciplinary aspect there came in with the assemblers, or the software people, the hardware people. But now multidisciplinary, the word multidisciplinary has taken a new nuance, in the sense that means that, oh yes, I'm an electrical engineer, but I have aspects and understanding of chemical engineering, or I'm a material science engineer, but I have understanding and aspects of double E or biology, you know, and I think that is one of the biggest challenges that the United States and industry in general is facing, because industry realizes that just, I don't trivial, you know, just being a nuclear physicist, Deb, you aren't quite everything that we need for this position. We need you to know a little bit about biotechnology, because we're going to have you dealing with, you know, proteins and drug interactions and applying your nuclear physics, applying what you know at the physics level, but applying it to biological systems. And if I was a purist and just took the courses that were assigned to me for that nuclear physics degree, I wouldn't know anything about proteins and amino acids and drug interactions and how they fold, and, you know, and so the multidisciplinary, and Mike Rocco at the National Science Foundation is just a profound proponent of multidisciplinary aspect of nanotechnology. It takes multiple disciplines, traditional disciplines, to understand nano, and then now nanotechnology is being applied to just about everything.
Absolutely.
Materials, you know, and so the workforce issue is that we need to be able to address the multidisciplinary needs of industry. And that's true whether we're talking space, whether we're talking CHIPS Act companies, semiconductors, you know, any discipline. And I think that's a huge challenge that needs to be
That's
addressed.
a major problem, Deb, but let me remind you that we started in America where the engineers were created by the companies themselves. So Ford Motor Company created his own engineers. So we had
Yep.
interaction between electrical engineering and mechanical engineering.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, electrical engineering is about to break out and wipe out mechanical engineering with all the software. And they never did run the universities to find their workers. What they did was what was Kellogg's cornflakes, right? Whether it was anybody, the workers themselves created the engineering, and
Yep.
then it migrated to the university. So let me
Yep.
ask you one more question. I give it to my
That's good. That's good.
on the nano level, which we can take an engine as small as my thumb, by the way, make an engine as small as my thumb and run a car off of it. We can make we've seen computers get very, very small and etc. So as we look to AI and how the world would change, what's the impact of nanotechnology? And that's just making things smaller at the micro level, at the very, very nano level. What would be the impact of nanotechnology on our products going forward? We know that it's already there, by the way, but what would be the
Right.
impact? Yeah, you think?
I think that understanding the world at the atomic and molecular level, which is how I define nanotechnology, the ability to understand, manipulate, research, create at the atomic and molecular level is certainly going to impact every discipline. It's going to impact every discipline. The hesitancy that I have right now is that right now it takes very expensive pieces of equipment to be able to observe and manipulate at the atomic level. Now, I could put on my chemistry hat and I could say, well, chemists do that all the time. That's true, but being able to control it and to monitor it, I believe is a challenge that needs to be addressed. And there comes a point, and I like your economic background and just or discussion, in that if you can make enough of something that people want, then the price is going to go down. Just the volume type approach. And so for some of the developments that are occurring through the nano research, part of the problem is we've discovered unique aspects at the nanoscale, but we haven't made the connection to how those discoveries, those research aspects can be applied to commercialization, you know, how they can be applied to a product. And that was actually why I wrote this last book that I wrote, Nanotechnology Applications to Space Exploration, because in my experience working with nanotechnology researchers, they were discovering amazing things, but yet there was usually a certain amount of hesitation because it had taken them fancy equipment and a lot of time to create this one thing. And my frustration was that they weren't necessarily looking at the space industry as a potential user of their discovery. And so part of the reason was I wanted to take all this wisdom, these people that were doing nanotechnology research, and make sure they were aware of what was required, what the requirements were to get into space and stay there and live there, because there was a disconnect between the two two groups.
I really like your observation about how we're going to live on Mars and how we're going to. Well, you know, I think we already have bases on Mars. On that note, I give you to Andreas.
Well, so they're going to be underneath the surface, you know, because that's where they've got to go to deal with the radiation.
Right. So let me chime in, Deb, and see if I can get you. Let me chime in and see if I can get you to opine on something and maybe explain how it would work. So nanotechnology is an amazing thing. We at Texas State have several companies that are doing nano dots, they call it, and it's all this kind of markers, coloring things. You know, the sky's the limit. But there is one thing that I saw that was really interesting that I wanted to share with you in the audience. So I was in a lab, Hitachi Toshiba joint venture lab in Japan about 5 years ago, where I saw for the first time a technology that basically had nanotechnology paint, and the paint was a unique paint. And so we walked into this room where it was dark, but there were light bulbs and there were no switches. And the concept was we got in the room, there were 6 of us, and we were talking. And as we stayed in the room and we were talking, you know, we humans, you know, emit heat, you know, from our biological processes. And as we were talking, the lights started coming on. And what was happening is the paint on the walls was feeding from the heat differential of the ambient and us emitting BTUs. And then that was turning into the ability to take all that heat differential into turning the lights on. And so how far away are we from nanotechnology transforming everything we do? And how do you think that system was working?
Transforming some of the things that we do, nanotechnology is bringing us very close. Transforming, you know, you said transforming everything, so that's my way of getting out of answering the question. But it's already having an impact in terms of especially self-cleaning windows, different types of paints. And I would think that what they had in that paint, I'm guessing, but what they had in that paint was molecules that were that once you started having a very slight differential in temperature, started impacting the chemical bonds, because some chemical bonds at the nanoscale are very temperature dependent. Just like, you know, radiation tolerance is very temperature dependent. And so I would guess that whatever molecules that they had put in that paint were susceptible to very small temperature changes. And therefore, you know, as soon as you start those molecules vibrating or atoms, you know, vibrating within each other, you're going to start if it's the right wavelength, you're going to start generating visible light or
Mhm.
that type. That's my guess at what they were
Mhm.
doing. You know, it's just so
So
amazing.
another thing to add to it, in back eventually to commercialization. So they said to us that the gallon of paint that they had come up with at the time was $30,000 per pint. You know, that was super expensive. I don't even know what kind of materials, what's in that paint, right? But the interesting thing about it, and you have been in the nano world, is that once you do the discovery, how hard is the journey of pushing that to a place where we can afford it, we can buy it, we can use it? What does that look like?
You know, I think that can be a very hard journey, predominantly because what is created and observed at the nanoscale again is because of the purity and the level of detail that's required at the nanoscale. An example that it was 15 years ago I used of a biological material. And if you'll allow me, you know,
Yeah.
cancers have tumors or whatever have specific proteins, target
Mhm.
proteins that,
Mhm.
and if we can create a nanoparticle that encode it with, say, 60% of a detector for that protein, and 40% of the nanoparticle is a drug that will kill that protein, that will kill that tumor. Well, then if we can, the idea is if we've got these nanoscale little nanomaterials, nanoparticles that have the 60-40 ratio, and then say I have cancer of the elbow and we can inject that into my elbow, then we could get rid of the cancer, kill the cancer. All of that
Mhm.
sounds really good, and I'm going to completely ignore the complexity of our human body and that there might be other proteins that those, forget that. Let's just say I want to verify the quality. I make a whole batch of these nanoparticles. I've got the nanoparticle, I coat them, and then I think I'm putting 60 and 40%. Now, we need to verify that those nanoparticles have that 60 and 40% ratio, not in the whole beaker of nanoparticles, but it's important that that ratio is on each nanoparticle. Okay, so how am I going to test it? If I've got an entire beaker, I can measure the properties of that beaker and I can say, yep, there's that 60-40 ratio that exists in this beaker, but I want to make sure that it's on every single nanoparticle. So I take a subset out and I test them. How big of a subset do I need to take? And validating that you've got a 60% to 40% ratio on every single nanoparticle of what you measure is a non-trivial exercise just in the quality control of it. And then how sure are we that if it's, say, you know, 7 out of 10 of those nanoparticles have that exact ratio, is that sufficient enough, or is that the guys that don't have the correct ratio, are they going to cause damage that we don't want? It's the complexity that just is included in that example that causes the price to go up,
Right.
cause it to be an expensive endeavor. Even though, hey, I've made gold nanoparticles in my lab. I've coated them with biological materials. But man, if I had to guarantee that every one that I created had the correct percentage of constituents, then that would be
Dale,
a big job.
aren't we
Yes,
using them?
sir.
Aren't we using them in things like cell phones and I mean cell phone screens and sunscreen and those nanoparticles to make it lighter?
Yep.
haven't we, I'm not sure, but haven't we applied it to the cell phone industry and to the
Oh,
other
yeah,
kinds of industry that actually makes stuff lighter, all kind of
yeah.
synthetic stuff that industry is using already though? I mean, is that true?
Yes, yes, you're absolutely correct. And I was yes, I
Okay.
ignored those. Now, for those, how pure do we have to have our nanoparticles to make a cell screen, a screen operate? Or I think for the places where we are, sunscreens, where there are or lotions, skin lotion, you
Mhm.
know, what makes our skin look so good is because we've created the ability to create cosmetic molecules. The molecules our skin needs, vitamin C and all those other strange stranger chemicals. We're able to formulate them in small enough sizes that they can penetrate the pores, the dead skin on the outside of our face, and get to the living cells underneath. And that's
No,
nanotechnology in the cosmetic industry. And at that point, I don't care if my lotion is 100% of those nanoparticles, as
right.
long as there's enough nanoparticles to get into my skin. So I think the places that we are able to apply uh, nanotechnology knowledge or nanotechnology materials are in those industries, in those applications where we don't have to have 100% or a high percentage of perfection or purity, which is not the case for medical or biological,
Right.
internal applications, which
Right.
is kind of where I was going. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, you have to get through the government with that one. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I think it's going to vary by industry, right? Uh,
Yeah.
it's going to vary by the automobile industry. It's going to vary by the chemical industry. It's going to vary by the clothing industry because I think
Yep.
it's being used in clothing. It's being used in all kind of at all kind of levels in different kinds of industries. And I don't think most Americans know about
No.
how it's going. Yeah.
No.
Mhm.
Nope.
Yeah. I mean,
No.
you change the product without telling people that you switch to nanotechnology. But the
It's
big application is going to be in medicine. That's
yeah.
look, it's going to change everything when you get to you have the mapping of the genome. But like you said so well, the human body is so interactive. You just don't know how many people do you have to kill to make sure that, that this thing will work.
Yeah.
I mean,
Make
it's
sure it's gonna
fascinating.
work.
Medical
It's
stuff, bio stuff. I've always said, I did a company called Glowfish, and I've always said that the bio stuff would make the revolution in computers look small.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
think the bio companies would
Yeah.
when they get it right, it's gonna be awesome, and people be able to
So,
choose, yeah, and etc. Go ahead, Andres.
yeah, I was gonna say, Deb, looking at the time here, how much or have you thought of, or have you looked into how would nanotechnology help the notion of solar thin films and things like that to improve efficiency? It seems like MIT recently released a new printable thin film, solar thin film technology. I would imagine there's quite a bit or some nanotechnology in that.
Mhm. Yeah. It's I was thinking about the energy generation too, which is the solar panels. And yes, nanotechnology is going to have a phenomenal impact. It already is in terms of space travel, in terms of living on the moon or living on Mars. Nanotechnology has made huge strides forward in terms of solar power, solar energy efficiency, the solar panel efficiency. Yes, that is phenomenal. Also, nanotechnology you were talking about in materials. We're creating nano materials just like your paint that causes the heat and it causes the room to become light. We can
Mhm.
create materials that as we move, we're creating energy, we're creating electricity, we're creating, maybe just by doing this with our arm, we can end up operating our cell phone. I don't know.
Yeah, that's already here. That was done at the University of Texas at Austin.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I made that up or if I'd read it
energy
somewhere.
is
Okay.
and the military is really interested. Yeah.
Good. So, and that, that is certainly efficient. My mind went somewhere else because I was thinking that as we generate energy, we lose a lot of energy because we require movement of pieces of equipment, like I was thinking of hydroelectricity generating, if we made those pieces lighter weight, which can happen with nanotechnology materials, we can make them lighter but still have the same mechanical strength and physical properties that are required, then we aren't as wasteful with the energy that we have created, because in a lot of cases the energy that we generate is required just to make things work, to connect it, to move it. And if we can change the materials, and that is certainly something, man, as the difference between aluminum 1040 and 1020 is because they're pressured different, they have different temperatures, composite, but it's all at the atomic level. The reason they have different physical properties is because the atoms in those materials are different constitutes or arranged differently. They have a different crystal structure because of the environmental stresses that were introduced when you made that material. And see, to me, that's really exciting, that once we can understand, and we're getting to the point where we can understand, why is this particular aluminum stronger than this one? And then once you can understand why at the atomic level, then you can go, oh, can I use that knowledge and transfer that over to another material that has a similar, crystalline structure? And to me, that's exciting.
It is exciting.
I'm excited.
You took us back to the dawn of mankind. You remember, Deb, that our biggest fear as humans would be getting eaten, and we feared the dark, and we love the sun.
Yes.
And when the sun came up, we tried to figure out how do we recreate the sun at night, and that became fire, and then that became gasoline, and then that became light. So let me get real philosophical here. The issue of peoplekind has been, how do we stay away from the dark?
Yeah.
How do we keep the lights on, and how do we stay away from the dark? So therefore, as you said earlier, interdisciplinary, you're combining the physical world with the nano world and seeing what the physical world can enhance human beings. So I like the excitement around age-old questions that we seek to and the sun, the S-U-N, I always said that when the good Lord said, he gave his only son, S-O-N, I always think S-U-N also. Because without the sun, S-U-N, where are we? If you look at ancient people, they really, really feared the dark. And everything that we've done to electricity is, how do we stay out of the dark? So I like that excitement. Excuse me, because I had to go back to my philosophy then.
No, I love it. I love it very much.
Yes.
Like,
Well,
I like both of the sons.
I'd be remiss if I don't remind everybody, I'm always crunching numbers, but just a reminder that the amount of solar energy that hits the earth every day is 173,000 terawatts. And if we could just capture, a piece of that day, we wouldn't need any more energy to capture for the rest of our lives.
Well, that's what Tesla said.
Yeah.
That's what Nikola said.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's fascinating, the role that nanotechnology plays. So a parting question, Deb, does AI play into the nano world?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, it will. And I like, if that's possible to say, I like AI. But I still want my pilot to walk around the plane and inspect things.
But Deb, you remind me of the people who would not get on a train at the Dallas airport, and now just fly around with no pilot. Come on now.
Yeah, no, it's not quite to that extreme, but you know, every decision that is made, every decision that goes with a solution, I think, and John, it kind of gets back to your modeling question. You can get an answer. Oh, you guys, do I have time? When I was in graduate school, I was teaching a physics lab for engineers. Okay, and this was way back in the time when we were just had our calculators, you know, the HP or the TI, and there was always the argument about which one was better, which one was best. And I was still using my slide rule. Now, I asked the students to do a calculation. They had to do a calculation and convert, you know, inches or centimeters. They had to do some conversions. And this one lab, the guys turned in, and I gave them a 0. And these engineering students were extremely upset that I had the audacity to give them a 0. And they asked me why. And I said, well, because your answer's wrong. And they said, what do you mean? And I said, well, you converted 4 centimeters to 18 inches. That's what they said. Well, that's what my HP, that's what my calculator said. That's what my calculator said. And I said,
it cost them
okay, you guys,
$400 it cost them.
you know, but then it was like, okay, show me how long are 16 centimeters, and or 4 centimeters, how long is 18 inches? And it was obvious when they thought about it that was a wrong answer. But the thing was, they didn't ask themselves, they just believed. And guys, that was a long time ago, but I think it still happens. And so wow. That's what I was trying to get at when I said I want the person walking around my airplane. If we ask.
Yeah, I used to do my statistics on my knees, and when I first saw the first calculator, it was an HP, and I think it cost $400. It took the mean, the standard deviation, you put them in, and then it ran the regression for you. It was wild. And now my graduate students, they never go. They don't know where it comes from. It's just a number that pops out. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
good stuff. Yeah. So modeling, you have to be careful with the modeling. Yes.
So Deb, what are you working on? What's in front of you the next 6 months?
Oh, let's see. I am in the process of probably doing some workforce development for some of the factories. One of them in your home city that are getting funded with the CHIPS Act, and making sure, trying to help educational institutions make sure that they can create the workforce that those industries need. And then I am working the Compass process, my decision making without regrets process with folks in the satellite, in the space industry.
Okay.
Trying to keep busy.
Sure. Well, thanks for being with us today. We are always excited to get all the angles of how digital transformations continue to happen. And I think that things seem to accelerate at a pace that is kind of hard to keep up. And I think that the reason we're all on this phone call and listening perhaps is because we all love learning. So cheers to learning, and I look forward to staying connected and keeping up with you.
Yep. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it. This was fun.
Oh, you too. Sure. I mean, I'm the same. You know, I think that it's all modeling, from music to physics. I think it's all modeling, and I think that we are really in the just elementary stage of understanding. That's what I think.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
John,
I play flute too, John. So we can.
Oh, good. Well, we've got to get together. All scientists play music, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
Yesterday, when I talked to a friend, I forgot to remember you had gone. For a moment, I thought I could forget you, but a moment isn't very long. Every now and then I get a chance to smile, but that every now and then is just once in a while. And tonight I've got a date with a new love, but I know I can do just as well at home. For a moment, I thought I could forget you, but a moment isn't very long.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Connie.
We have to play some flute. You know, my brother got his PhD with Jean Pierre Rampal. He was a
Ooh,
flute.
whoa. I'm playing his music though, so
Oh, good. Yeah,
from
my brother
Paul,
would you. Yeah, and you're located where?
Milwaukee.
Oh, good. I'm working with Milwaukee with Keenan Grinnell,
Oh
and
my gosh.
he's
Okay.
manufacturer. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I have to send you something. Okay.
Yes,
All
yes.
righty. Take care. Stay
Thank
warm.
Bye,
up there.
everybody.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Thank you, Deb.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Bye-bye.